Hi, my name is Terry Lynch. I'm the CEO of Power Nickel. Power Nickel is developing the Nisk project. It's a high-grade nickel sulphide project in near Nisk, Quebec, which is basically south and east of James Bay, and had a historical resource of about 3.1 million tons. We've been drilling since about mid-September. We'll finish off about a 15,000 meter program by April, and we'll hope to update our resource at that point. And we would expect to update our 43101 to a 8 to 10 million ton resource of about 1.5% nickel EQ. And that would be enough to make it commercial. And that's when things get exciting in the nickel business. So that's Power Nickel for the short sense.
Terry, great interview. Great introduction. Good to be talking to you again. I think that's the most complete introduction you've given in the interviews that I've done with you. It's the first time that you've taken it from Nisk and drilling right through to your target, your economic target of 8 to 10 million tons at 1.5% nickel. Presumably because that's the more marketing you do, the more interviews you give, it kind of sharpens your focus. And is that the strategy you're now talking about? You know, is your messaging?
Trying to keep the message simple. You know, I mean, generally speaking, you know, it's like that's why getting out these assays are important every 4 weeks, because people can check along the box and say, hey, are they continuing to hit the grade? Are they continuing to have good intercepts? So that they're, that we can see that, yeah, that makes sense, that what he's saying is truthful, and the modeling is intact. So yeah, we've been pretty consistent in that messaging, and the other message that we've been very consistent on is we think that's just a start. This is one pod in what we believe will be a multi-pod, deposit. Like every nickel sulphide mine in the world is multiple pod. Right now, we're just working on 1 square kilometer, and we've got some pretty interesting ideas where the other pods are, and we've got some interesting new technology about how to get to those pods. So that's the other thing we've been thematically staying on.
We'll come on to the new pods, we'll come on to the new technology, but you mentioned that kind of consistency. You mentioned coming to the market every few weeks with news results, and that is what you've done. Just recently, you've put out the latest batch of drill results, some good intersections in there. 10 meters, 1.4% nickel, plus 0.9% copper and 0.09% cobalt with palladium. These are
big kicker palladium, substantial palladium, 3 grams, right? Almost, yep.
Yeah. In a subset of that, 10.25 meters. Now, obviously, these aren't true width intersections, so your drill holes come down onto a relatively steeply dipping structure, but it's I think you say it's between 60 and 70%. I think that's what the guidance is on the on the news releases. So if you've got a 3 and a bit meter intersection, it's going to be a 2 and a bit meter true width, and if you've got a 10 meter intersection, you're looking at 6 to 7 meters true width. Pretty punchy stuff.
Right.
You put those those results out. What's the reception been when you've been speaking to the market? Have you been speaking to investors or press?
The reception has been good. I mean, the stock has made some good moves, not as radically or as far as we think it should be in relative comparability to other nickel sulphide projects around the world, but it's making steps in the right direction. We've got a lot of I think what's interesting too is the quality of investors we're getting. We're getting a lot of, I would say, top tier geologists, top industry guys, a number of conversations with industry people. So we're getting what I would say would be knowledgeable investors that are buying the stock, and because they know that ultimately the science will win out, and they're believing in the science that we will eventually make this a commercial deposit, and if you do, then you're going to be worth a lot more money, and so guys that actually feel comfortable with the science will tend to invest first, and then general market conditions have still been crap for junior mining, to be honest with you. But you're in the business, you know this. I'm not telling you tales outside of school. I mean, you look at when I have our comparables in our slide deck where we look at other half dozen nickel sulphide companies, people like Talon Metals and Premier Nickel and Sutra, they're down by half, over their highs, and yet theoretically nickel is going to be one of the, in demand metals going forward, and those companies should be doing very, very well. So, I mean, nickel market has not really taken off yet, not like the lithium market. And we're doing relatively well in terms of rising in that market when our peers are down. But, when we look at it in absolute terms and say, what are we getting price per pound of nickel in the ground relative to our peers? We're getting 10 cents on the dollar. Well, that doesn't make us feel very good.
Yeah. No, I can understand it. I mean, you're right in saying that you are on an uptrend. If you look at your share price over the last 2-3 months, it's a pretty impressive rise. It is off a low base, and your overall project valuation or the company valuation is still sub $40 million Canadian. I think it's kind of 37, 38 at the moment.
When people say to me, they say, "Well, I missed it. You've doubled or tripled since I last looked at you." I say, "Well, you just missed a Ukrainian dip."
Yeah,
I mean, who could have planned that?
Yeah,
I mean, 2 years ago we financed the thing at 25 cents hard and 40 cents flow through, and so we're back now. We're like 33 cents, something like this.
Yeah,
barely back to just above break even. Really, so it's like, no, you just missed that dip that should never have happened anyway. But now we're back to normal, and we'll hopefully move from here. But still very, very early days here.
Well, crucially, you're back to where you were in terms of your valuation, but the project is much advanced.
Yeah, we're feeling really good about that. We're feeling like we've done the right thing scientifically to it. We've had good teams that have executed well. We feel like we've got a good flow going there on the drill bit, and that we've got the metallurgy coming together. We'll have a full metallurgical report out in end of April, early May from XPS, which is one of the leaders in the field, and then that will allow us to update our 43-101 and get a big number on the table, and that should hopefully excite and educate the marketplace.
Yeah, no, I look forward to that. Just on the drilling, you and talking about other pods and outside of the kind of the immediate Nisk ore body, are you concentrating all of your drilling at the moment within that central zone?
Probably about 80% is within the Nisk main zone, and about 10% is going east and west. There's a couple of winter targets on either side of those that if we miss them now, we won't get them until next winter.
Yeah.
So we're the team thinks they're pretty high potential targets. So we're going to do them this winter, even though we, theoretically we would have more intel, more educational insight and scientific insight by after completing our fleet aerospace ambient noise research, but we still have enough stuff that suggests that we should take those shots now and learn something and hopefully hit as well.
You've segued neatly into the fleet aerospace ambient noise. All right, it sounds a bit...
I'm a seguer.
It sounds a bit Star Trek. Tell me what you got.
You know what? I mean, and every scientist I bring this to first are skeptical as hell. And I get that, and that's good, because a good scientist should be skeptical. So how I learned about this is a shareholder actually gave me the tip, who was a shareholder of Talon. He said, "Terry, have you seen Talon's press release today?" And I said, "No, I know it's in my in-basket. I've just been busy and never had a look." I looked at it, and it's about this fleet technologies, and they're using this ambient noise technology to help explore for nickel at Talon. So I thought, read it and thought, well, that looks interesting. Went to the fleet technology site and checked it out and thought, well, that's pretty cool stuff. And then I contacted Fleet, and they sent me some white papers and some scientific literature, and I read it. But again, the thing is, I'm a business guy, and I'm reading this stuff as a business guy would read, and I'm smarter than the average bear, but I could easily be fooled in science. I'll be straight up on that. So, I basically was impressed enough to sort of say, hey, I brought this to my scientific team, GeoVector, Joe Campbell and Adam and Ken over at 3DGO. And I said, guys, look, I've seen this new technology. They're using it for exploration at nickel now. It looks really interesting. It could maybe short circuit the time we need to identify these pods through conventional techniques, and maybe reduce the amount of drilling we have to do to find the nickel. But again, I'm not the science. You're the science team. You guys decide how we spend the money, but I want you to get educated. Like, I think, meet with Fleet and see what they've got. So they were pretty skeptical, but I've convinced them that I said, look, I'm paying for you to get educated. Get educated. If you don't like it, then we won't do it. And they had several meetings, and by the final, I guess the third meeting, they got educated, and they said, yeah, no doubt this could be very helpful for us. So I mean, it's a tool like all tools, and we'll use it in conjunction with other, with seismic and with gravity and with things that you would ordinarily do. But it basically, what it does is if it's executed well, and in our case, when you have a deposit already where you've already drilled it and you've already got assays and you got widths and intersections and geological data and geophysical data over that, then this technique becomes very valuable, because what it does is they basically put these what I would call, looks like almost like little landmines. They're called geodes, but they're about 100 meters apiece. They put them in a square, and they basically pulse the earth with a sound wave, and they capture sound maps coming back. And these sound maps basically are correlated to the other data that you've given them. And then they can basically, within 4 days of being on your site and over your deposit, they can give you a 3D visualization of your deposit at depth. And that's pretty killer, because it allows you to sort of see, hey, did we, hit all the areas that we, that look like our deposit? Do we miss some? Maybe we could add some extra tonnage that way. Then we also see, because it goes down to 2,000 meters, theoretically, is this a stack system? Is there another lens underneath this lens? Is there another river or nickel underneath it that we could possibly go down and drill? And then finally, most importantly, now we have a signature that we can take to our other unexplored areas and say, hey, this is a sound map of what it looks like when it's in nickel, and let's look and see where these other things are. And then we can use, gravity and seismic over that as well to sort of, ensure it's best, and it's like, I'm a big believer in measure twice and cut once. Yeah. Drilling is expensive. So whatever scientific work we can do seems to me to be good money to de-risk the project.
And presumably it's relatively inexpensive to run if it's a passive system.
Relatively inexpensive, yeah.
And have you had the opportunity to test out its imaging capabilities through this ongoing round of drilling that you've been doing at Nisk?
No. So basically, obviously, it's northern Quebec, so it's cold as hell up there. So these are sensitive instrumentation. So we can't use it until we'll be going in there late May, and it'll take us probably until end of June to have it work the entire project package. But by then we'll have everything we need to identify where we want to go for our next round of drilling at Nisk.
So it's a potentially useful vectoring tool for the summer campaign.
Yeah, we would think it would be a very useful tool for that.
Let's see. Let's do the acid test.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to be their biggest champion, or it'll be like, wow, we tried this stuff and it didn't work. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But again, the idea is that you should be able to visualize this and have a very clear target. And target's either going to be a 1 or a 0. You know how that works.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to speak to Talon about it? Have you spoken to what they thought about it?
Yeah, they were supportive. They said that they were very impressed with it, and that it's they're doing some drilling on it right now, and they like what they see. So I'm expecting that we'll have similar results. In Western Australia, they actually literally discovered some copper mines and lithium as a result of it. And it was interesting to me listening to that, because one of our challenges, we're spinning off our copper gold projects.
Yeah. And
we have projects in Chile, and we have massive projects. They're 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 hectares. These are big tracts of land. We had them for 25 years. And one of our biggest challenges with them is it's in the desert. And in the desert, you have sand dunes, and you have caliche. And caliche is a mineralized limestone, as you know, and it basically obstructs gravity and seismic signaling. So it's hard to get a really good, accurate read of what's underneath the sand. In West Australia, they also have caliche, but they've been able to see through it with the sound imaging. So that could be a groundbreaking technical breakthrough if it does work in the desert. And they've just signed a big deal with Saudi Arabia to bring it over there and use it in the. And they're really making a push into mining, and that's apparently that's going to be part of it.
Well, heaven knows we need to find more deposits of
we definitely need that.
Copper and nickel, and you name it, the whole suite of minerals. You mentioned just then this, spinning out your copper assets from Chile. You've also got them in BC as well. You've mentioned it in past interviews. What's the timeline looking at? Do you think by the end of this year you'll be at two separate companies?
Yeah. I think we'll actually look to get it approved at our annual meeting, and then which will be sort of in May, and then it'll be a plan of arrangement, so it would probably take another 40 days or 45 days. So I would say Q3 is when it would happen, like probably July-ish.
Do you think that? I think it'll kind of give value to your existing shareholders because they'll have another share in a new company. But I'm not sure if you'd see a share price move within Power Nickel because of that. But it certainly would give.
Yeah, I mean without going down the rabbit hole, it should help separate out the value that will be good, and it may we've talked off camera a bit about the short situations and these sorts of things that are typically a problem in mining stocks in particular, and spinouts are never good things for shorts, especially if they're on different exchanges. So this could be helpful in that respect. So we'll see.
Kind of potentially a flushing mechanism.
Yep.
Good. So let's come back to the kind of the main drivers of value, the kind of the catalysts within Power Nickel, with particular reference to Nisk. So putting aside the copper spinout, putting aside the other pods, let's just look at that 8 to 10 million tons and the timeline to get there. Just remind me of that once again, please.
Yeah. So basically, we've got 10 holes in the can right now, waiting for assays. We'll probably get another 10, I'm guessing, done. Maybe more, maybe 12 between now and breakup. And then at the same time as the drilling is going on, we're also doing the metallurgical work, and that will form a part of the 43101. And we would expect that, all things being equal, that by the end of June or early July, we would have an updated 43101, and we're tracking on that 8 to 10 million ton forecast, and we'll see ultimately what will happen. But that's what the internal modeling would suggest. So, and then
just to be clear, when you talk about an updated 43101, you are talking about a resource,
yes?
Or are you talking? Okay, so you're going to go for an updated mineral resource estimate.
I guess it wouldn't, to be clear, technically speaking, because it was a historical resource, it will be a new technical resource.
Yeah.
It's not really an updated resource, because that would imply we've got one. And historically, we don't have one. But
so it'll be your maiden resource, but not the first resource on the project.
Right.
The metallurgical test work isn't a critical path item for a resource estimate, is it?
Yeah, it is. As it turns out, you have to have within 10 years, you have to have a current metallurgical study, because we actually had posted the resource using the old metallurgical studies we had, and they BC Securities came back and said, no, you got to have it with the metallurgical study has to be done within 10 years, otherwise you can't use it. Well, and these metallurgical studies, they take 3 or 4 months to run, because you're actually running them that long.
Yeah.
So that wasn't possible. So we pulled the resource that we had posted, and said we would update this obviously when we got that resource completed. But in the interim, we kept on drilling, and obviously we'll be rolling in 15,000 meters of drilling into that updated report.
And the holes that you're drilling at the moment, it's a mixture of a few infill into some gaps, but also pulling out the envelope.
Yeah, we've gone basically probably 300 meters from our resource in total, something like that. So as we've got down like that, the most recent hole is probably about that.
300 meters vertical below.
Yeah, below the resource. Yeah.
And that historic resource was down to
most of the historic resource was within 100 meters actually, and most of the drilling had been done within 100 meters. So we're now our deepest hole we've gone total depth of actual depth is about 400 meters.
Okay, it's still not it's not a overly challenging depth. And
nope.
it is open at depth.
So far, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, look, listen, I mean, it's as my scientific friends say, this is one of the more cooperative ore bodies I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So I'm just like keeping my fingers crossed. We've had lots of, bad breaks. So some good ones would be most appreciated, and nothing, you can't fake the drill bit. So that's the one. If you need anything to come in the mining sector, it's that. So the gods have so far blessed us, and we're thankful for that. And thank you, Mother Earth. We appreciate you.
It's not easy, the mining business. There are lots of challenges, whether they are metallurgical or mining related or permitting or finance. So if you to make a success of a mineral deposit, the geology really needs to stack up. It really needs to stack up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of shaping up at Nisk, isn't it?
It's shaping up at Nisk, and we're lucky that we're in Quebec, and I don't think people recognize how valuable and important that jurisdiction is, because in addition to doing all the right things, like they did a tremendous job educating the Aboriginal partners on how to benefit and participate in the wealth creation that mining brings, and thus make them supportive of projects, which they've done a great job of doing. They've also put in infrastructure like roads, and like we're off of we can drive off a 4-lane road to our place, to our project, and across the street from us is a major Hydro-Quebec substation. I mean, it doesn't get any better in terms of cheap green power. This will be the greenest nickel mine in history, and that's going to be a great thing. All that stuff is fantastic, but what really sets them apart is you got 2-for-1 financing, and people say, what do you mean by that? And I'm saying, well, literally, because of federal Canada's desires and provincial Quebec's desires to encourage critical mineral exploration, they've set up a series of tax credits and tax deductions and structures. So it basically inspires Quebec-based financial institutions to invest in companies like Power Nickel, as long as they have a backstop investor that takes them out. So what happens is they will give me $1, and my backstop investor will buy that same unit they bought from me for $1 for 50 cents on the same day. And so how does that work? Well, what happens is the financial investor, he is acting for high net worth taxpayers in Quebec. They have their tax rates drop from 55% to say 42%. So they win as an investor. The government wins because they're getting investment into critical minerals, which is what they have determined is a good use of their, subsidy dollars. And the investor wins because he's had 50 cents become $1 in an investment he's actually looking to make money on. So obviously, as a company, we win because we dilute less shares, and that's great for us. And it's easier to get access to capital. It's now when I'm raising, like, our next raise will probably be like $5 million. I really only have to raise 2.5. I mean, that's just because how tough it can be at times to raise capital here. So we don't have any problems. We got lots of people wanting to give us money. We just don't like the pricing right now. So but it is what it is. But the Quebec is phenomenal that way right now. That vehicle is really amazing.
Yeah, I agree. The more I interview companies with assets in Quebec, the more I experience different jurisdictions around the world, the more I realize how important it is to have a truly supportive kind of government behind you, and in all of the ways that you've described, both the financial and the fiscal, but equally the education and the infrastructure. Good. Now, just on the capital raise, you said when you do the next raise, but you just done one. I mean, you did one 6 weeks ago, so presumably your next raise is a few months out in the future when you need it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we did the raise, we said that would be enough to finish off this next program, which is we're into right now. So we're now March 1st, so June 1st is just around the corner. So I mean, obviously, yeah, it comes at you fairly quickly, and you only do this when if you were not confident of your ore body, you wouldn't be drilling. Bottom line, you'd be waiting for better times. But we're having good cooperation there, and we're making progress, and the other thing we basically believe when you get commercial, all of a sudden industry opportunities open up. Okay, so we're getting a lot of conversations right now with major industry partners. Like I'm going to Korea after PDEC for a week, meeting with the battery guys over there. The Japanese trading companies are quite interested. So we're talking with a different echelon of investor, a sophisticated investor that understands how to analyze and invest in this mining business. And so right now, you would, if the market stayed as the way it is today, I would see us, just dealing with industry and not the market at all, because we'll get a lot more money from industry than we will from the market. But I think the market will eventually wake up. But it's one of those things.
The market's a funny beast. I mean, there are bearish signals ahead, and yet you look at the fundamental nickel demand versus supply, and you look at where nickel stocks are, and I think you can only be long-term bullish. But it feels choppy. It feels choppy waters out there. There's risk of recession. There's risk of China producing more nickel, Indonesia perhaps. It's a tough one. That's always the case. The markets always come with a degree of opacity. It's never possible to say.
And I say to the people when they ask me about the nickel markets, I say there's three nickel markets. There's a Chinese nickel market, and there's a European nickel market, and there's the North American nickel market. And the Chinese nickel market, you've got an oversupply of Class 1 nickel and a fairly big oversupply of Class 2 nickel or recycled nickel. Generally because the construction industry has been shut down, so stainless, which is the number one driver of nickel, has been down in China. But none of that nickel's ever coming out of China. Okay, no commodity goes into China that comes out unless it's a finished product. So that nickel is not a threat. Europe right now they have their sort of a small imbalance, on the short side of Class 1 nickel, and a small plus on the stainless side. North America is about even on both, and so I think that the pricing shocks. I'm not expecting anything serious to happen there. I think probably U.S. dollar will have more influence on anything price wise than actual supply and demand. But if you look out a year or two, hard not to see structural problems in the supply chain, because if last year was 10 million electric cars. Within 3 years, they're expecting to get to 30 million and then 40 million. So electrification is going to move the dial from 10% today to 30% to 40%, and there's just not enough nickel out there to do it. And then you add the fact that people are using the IRA to say, hey, you got to have North American nickel. Can't use Indonesian nickel, So and not that we want to, because it's dirty nickel, but it's a problem. So it's a good thing for power nickel, and I think but the market doesn't understand that, or investors don't necessarily understand that they should be making investment decisions based on some of that intel, and that's where they need to get educated.
Yes, but equally, if you're an investor and you're coming at the nickel market thesis, you could play any nickel company, but the whole reason why investors should be looking at a power nickel is because you've got the bottom up catalysts, you've got the fundamental growth in capital value through exploration, and then the de-risking of your asset base to an economic study. First of all, a resource, and then an economic study on your resource, and in a sense that can cut through a macro picture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm always a bottom up guy myself. I always like to buy the money in the ground already, and believe in that, and then let's hope that the broader markets make us really happy. But it's never works out the other way around for me.
No, generally not. Anyway, Terry, a really good catch up with you. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. I will look forward to seeing you at the PDAC, and keep those drill results coming. Keep them coming, baby.
All right, sounds good, bro. Have a great night. Cheers.